Alex, thanks for joining us. Let's start with those concerns over sanctions being dropped on Iran. Do you agree with analysts, including some at Goldman Sachs, who said that that would have little impact on the market?
Hi there. Yeah, it's, as ever, the devil's in the detail, and I think in this instance it's around timing of any price moves. I think we're likely to see a short drop in price action on the initial announcement of any deal being done, but ultimately I think the market is largely pricing this in. Generally, OPEC has stated that it will still be managing the supply. It managed the process with Libya coming back to the market, producing more crude. And even if we do have an announcement, it's not going to be an immediate increase in the oil that we actually see coming from Iran. It will legitimize what we're already seeing going into China, for example. But being realistic, it's going to be a longer period, maybe 12 months, before we see an additional 2 million barrels or so coming from the country. So I think, yeah, it will be muted. We'll probably see a short drop, but it'll be short-lived, and then the market will kind of normalize again because this is basically priced in.
And OPEC Plus meets next week, so what are you expecting?
As ever, never pays to second guess, but our feel is that they're going to continue with this kind of moderate increase. Given the circumstances, yes, we have good demand growth in the US, as you're mentioning there earlier. Very positive numbers on product draws. The 4-week moving average for demand for gasoline and distillate is increasing in the country. Yes, we're in a generally positive place in Europe, but there are concerns in some of the more kind of peripheral countries in Asia where case rates have been spiking up quite dramatically. So as ever, it's a balancing act on the demand side. But the environment is improving, so it's likely that they will continue to increase supplies, maybe not as much as the kind of the maximum level, especially if the risk is there that we could start to see more Iranian barrels coming onto the market in a legitimate way later on in the summer as well.
And I'd like to know what you think about this shareholder vote that's taking place right now at the Exxon AGM. How much impact are activist shareholders concerned about climate change able to have on the fossil fuel industry?
I think they've already demonstrated quite an impact with the rest of the majors. As you mentioned, Exxon has been seen to be lagging behind the likes of BP and Shell, who have already stated relatively ambitious targets in terms of their progress towards the energy transmission. But even then, the likes of Shell and BP are still being hurt, as it were, or targeted by activists and investors. We have the news today that Shell has been forced, or is going to be forced by the Dutch courts to reduce its emissions above and beyond what they've already committed to. So I think it's only fits that Exxon is seeing more pressure. You mentioned earlier the scale of the shareholders involved. When you think that the 3 major passive fund holders own 20% of Exxon, and they all have stated their aims to be much more active in the ESG space, it's inevitable that Exxon's going to come under more and more pressure to catch up with the rest of the market.
Thanks so much for that. Alex Booth, Head of Market Analysis at Kpler.